So 2K is getting sued over in-game currency that they use in their annual sports franchises. The info that we're citing is coming over from Eurogamer that did a big write-up on all of this. And the complaint alleges conversion, civil theft, and unfair business practices. So Take-Two Interactive and 2K Games are facing a class action lawsuit over the removal of purchased in-game currencies from accounts when a game's online features are taken offline. So for context, whether it's NBA 2K or WWE 2K games, they utilize in-game currency. You can go and acquire credits for free by grinding things out. Let's use my faction as an example here. You can go and grind out to get different cards, but you can also purchase in-game virtual currency using real money, use your credit card, and buy the currency to get different bonuses, unlockables, things of that nature anytime that you use the game to be able to utilize it within that specific mode. Again, whether it is WWE 2K or NBA 2K in these examples. The lawsuit was filed by a minor and his mother, who's acting as his representative and next friend, to the federal court of Northern District of California on November 17th. In the lawsuit, Take-Two and 2K's annual sports franchises NBA 2K, WWE 2K, and PGA Tour 2K are named for offering in-game upgrades which require in-game virtual currency. The virtual currency can be bought with real-world money. The big issue around this lawsuit is that once the next year's game comes out, the servers are shut down for the previous year's title, just like we've talked about with WWE 2K22 servers getting shut down in the time frame of January of 2024. And this is done because it's on an annual cycle, so 2K shuts those servers down and moves on to the next game. The Eurogamer article says that, however, when 2K retires the server of one of the installments, any currency purchased within that game, which hasn't been used yet, is removed from the player's account with no way to transfer it to another game. So within 2K games of WWE, PGA Tour, and NBA 2K, you buy the virtual currency, you use that in your account within 2K. In my faction, you buy up all those cards, the card packs, and maybe at the end of the year, let's say it's January, and you've accumulated $20, $10, $200 within your online virtual currency account, which is real money you have spent, you're not allowed to transfer that to the next game. If you are using the My Faction mode and you are buying virtual currency to unlock card packs, and you use your credit card to get more currency, you'll start accumulating all of that virtual currency. But in January, for example, in the following year, the servers for 2K would get shut down, and you can't transfer that to 2K25. The lawsuit seeks a trial by jury and equitable non-monetary and monetary relief for anyone whose in-game currency was removed by 2K from their account from the 17th of November 2019 onwards. So this is a big deal across the board. And there's interesting elements at play within all of this. On the surface, from the consumer side, this may force 2K to change their practices when it comes to virtual currency, which is ultimately a good thing. Microtransactions, virtual currency is not going away within our video games. And I think it's just going to perpetually, it's only going to get worse, and we're going to see more virtual currency, microtransactions, advertising within our video games. I think that that's what we're going to see going forward in the future. So on one side, I really hope that this lawsuit results in 2K, Take-Two Interactive, changing their practices when it comes to microtransactions and finding different strategies, different ways that are more consumer friendly. I understand from the business side that they want to be able to garner as much revenue as possible to keep the games alive, keep going. More revenue means they can put more money into the next year's title. They have to find different ways. Any game company has to find different ways to generate revenue as much as possible, especially on an annualized franchise like NBA 2K or WWE 2K. If you look at the other side of the coin though, there is the argument that, well, you kind of signed up for this. And I think it's important to just play devil's advocate for a second. From 2K's side, from Take-Two Interactive side, you're willingly putting your credit card out there. You are agreeing to the terms of service. Theoretically, you read that when you turn the game on for the first time and you go through everything that is written there. Nobody does. But in theory, stuff is all written out for what's going on within the microtransactions, what you're paying for, and utilizing your credit card to buy virtual currency to get certain things, digital things within a video game. You are taking that risk, I think. I think there is some responsibility on the consumer as well of like, well, if I'm going to put $100 down with my credit card for this virtual currency and I don't use it and it doesn't transfer to the next year's game, so be it. And there is also the question mark of, if you are somebody who regularly plays things like NBA 2K, WWE, PGA Tour, and these microtransactions are in there every single year, I think that there would be some common sense that you're aware that these credits do not transfer to the next year's title. But if it is also your first time playing these games, maybe you don't know. Also, the parents may not know. But there's also the parents' responsibility to monitor the game, the kids, and all that stuff. So it's very complicated, and it's fascinating to see what will be the result of this, and how something like this in our world of WWE 2K, how it could be impacted. The microtransaction world, the by-faction world, is very scrutinized online here. Maybe there's a lot of players that like to play it and a lot of kids that are just dumping money into my faction, but at least for the online portion of the world, people are not a fan of this, and not a fan of the microtransactions, and that things are paywalled and that they are locked behind this, and you can't even use items, attires, models, characters within the base game that you already pay for, that you already pay the $150 for the icon edition, assuming you're going to get everything in the game, and we don't get all of that. And they nickel and dime and microtransact you to incentivize you to do this. And on the NBA 2K side, you're getting just a lot more gambling put in your face as well. And I personally don't agree with any of that, but it's not going to change. What can change though is the model and the approach. Take-Two Interactive, in my opinion, should be looking at Call of Duty as an example of how they handle virtual currency. With the Call of Duty points that you accumulate, you can transfer those from one Call of Duty game to the next. This allows you to keep your virtual currency and move it over. If you have $5, $10, $20, $200 put into your Call of Duty points, the game is done for the season or for the year, the next one comes out and you can go and you can transfer those points to the next game. This puts the consumer, the player, in a much healthier position, in my opinion, of not feeling like they put all of this money and effort and time into this product, into this game, and then it's just ripped away and they can't use their money anymore, or they have all this leftovers that they can't even use. And it could be on the minimal side, right? In some examples, it could be $5, but you're like, I can't use that $5 on the 2K side. It essentially expires and my money expires. And because it's actual money that's transformed into the virtual currency, it's a very complicated situation. Are you giving up the rights to all of that when you just dump it into virtual currency? And you come to just assume and expect that I can't use it anymore once the year is over? And I don't think it's a good model in general. I think it hinders 2K. I think Take-Two Interactive should look at how Call of Duty handles it, for example. Some players that do enjoy things like My Faction, they might have a lot of virtual currency built up. Instead of having that just expire, why not transfer it over to the next year's game, so that you do incentivize players right off the bat to get players to jump into your microtransaction virtual currency mode that you're doing, that you want to be able to get them to unlock card packs and things of that nature. Someone could walk in day one with 2K24 and have $100 left in their virtual currency that they could spend day one. I don't know why Take-Two honestly would have this as their model where it expires. Maybe on one hand, it's because they already get all the currency, they already have the cash there in the account. Because if the user can't cash it out and it just becomes deleted and it doesn't transfer, wouldn't it just go into 2K's pocket then, because the currency is just sitting there? So they would gather all of that extra revenue? That's my assumption. Maybe it just expires and it goes nowhere, but I would have a feeling that Take-Two is not going to allow money just to literally sit there on accounts, not being utilized. But with the assumption that microtransactions, My Faction mode, NBA 2K's Model 2 with microtransactions, assuming these things are just not going away, we gotta live with all of this. How do you fix it? How do you change it to make it more consumer friendly? This lawsuit is very interesting in terms of the impact it will have on these giant annualized sports franchises. But you have a large player base, at least on the WWE 2K side, you have a massive player base across all platforms, and having our funds just expire and not be able to use them when we want to just go and buy the next year's game anyways, it seems kind of silly at that point. But speaking of platforms, we do have more information regarding the platforms for 2K24, so strap in. There's been a recent report that has come out through Brazil that 2K24 is scheduled to come out across all the platforms from last gen and current gen: PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series S, X, PC. And with this report, what do you think? To me, it's not overly surprising that they would have this come out across PS4 and Xbox One, and it's on last gen. And it's interesting to see all of the comments and feedback around this, because at least here in our community, a lot of the feedback has been mixed on this. Some people feel like it should not be on last gen consoles. Some people are excited because they still have a PlayStation 4. So it's going to come down to the individual, I think. On one hand, I think it's great that it's coming out on last gen consoles because the install base is still incredibly large. On the other hand, I feel like it holds back the game in some respects, that they can't move forward into what even the current gen technology offers. They still have to hold back a little bit, but I'm not a game developer, so maybe it doesn't even matter. But I feel like over time, it starts to feel like an older game because it's still trying to make sure that it will work on the last gen consoles instead of just moving forward. Eventually they got to bite the bullet here, but I think that what they will do is that by 2K25, that's a long cycle where they could finally move over to the next gen. And the final bit of news that's been making the rounds like crazy is going to be CM Punk. He obviously returned to WWE. He says he's home and he might just in fact be part of the DLC when it comes to 2K24. So if you need to know about all of that, the details, everything about all of the roster info, click this video because it goes in depth on Punk, the DLC, and everything. See ya.